All right, we're going to get started. So now I'm extremely excited to introduce George, who's Director of Quality Engineering at Hilton. He gave me a few boring things to talk about from his resume, his words, not mine. So here are the boring words according to George. He is an expert in leading transformative results-driven quality engineering in a high-performance setting, leveraging 21 plus years, so 22, 23, years of experience to improve product quality, drive innovation, and accelerate delivery. Now, the two things he wanted me to lean into that are not as boring, and you haven't heard that from every speaker that you ever heard, are first, he loves breaking things. I think that resonates with at least another speaker today. Loves breaking things and working with great people, so we're in a great room. And then secondly, lately he's been working on disrupting the broken recruiting process. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome to the stage George. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that riveting introduction. I did tell him to say that. Hi, I'm George. I realize I'm in a really bad spot because I am going to be between you and lunch. They're going to bring out lunch. My crystal ball is telling me they're going to bring out lunch. It's going to smell delicious. No one's going to listen to what I'm about to say. So I'm going to try to make this quick, light, hopefully a little informative as well. All right. First, I have a confession to make. I should not have become a QA manager at Amazon. Here's the situation. I was an IC for a couple of years, and I wanted to move to management, so I interviewed for a QA manager position. Amazon has this bar raiser concept. So on every loop, there's someone who's a bar raiser. He basically, or she says, is this person better than half the people in this role at Amazon now? If the answer is yes, you're hired. If the answer is no, you're not. If you're on the fence, it's a no. So I was chatting with the bar raiser. He asked me, what do you look for? Like the interview was going okay, but I'd never been a manager before. And he asked me, what do you look for when you're hiring people? And it came out. I wanted to take it back after it came out. I said, good attitude. And paused. It's just not a great answer. He, asked me a little bit more. What I did not know was this was not just a normal bar raiser, but this was the first and only recruiting architect at Amazon. Great leader, love this guy. I learned a lot from him. But he ultimately got me my first job as a QA manager because he knew how to really tease out the data from me. Like take a bad answer, follow up, and get the information he needed to make an informed decision. I ended up shadowing this bar raiser for years. I learned most of how to interview and what not to do when you're interviewing from this person. So great leader. Learned a ton. So I'm here today. I want to share with you some of my experiences through my recruiting journey. And as a hiring manager, how do we improve our recruiting process? How do we hire the best QA? So I'm going to be sharing some experiences. There's going to be a few more stories to make things a little entertaining. And we're going to think of, is there a better way to hire? All right. First, a little bit more about me. Okay, more boring stuff. But I've done over 1,000 interviews. I've hired over 100 people. I've been very blessed to work at places like Microsoft, Amazon, and Apple. I've hired over 100 people. One person who I hired was what I'd call a regrettable hire, mishire. I'll tell you this quick story. This person looked too perfect. We interviewed him. He gave us just the perfect answers. I remember I asked him, how would you come up with the test strategy about? And I told him exactly what we were struggling with. And he listed off our current test strategy, what we've been working months on. and something just was wrong, but I couldn't prove it. And he passed all the other interviews. We gave him an offer. I followed up with his referrals. I interviewed them, glowing reviews. And so I had no data to base my decision on. Anyways, he was a poor performer, lasted at Amazon for 2 years. Sucked down teams with him. Later, much later, I found out that he was a referral himself, and the person who referred him was not a very trustworthy person. Amazon used to give referral bonuses at the time. I think he was just given the answers, basically, to the questions. Still regret that. It still bothers me to this day. So how do we avoid this? Let's talk about some challenges of hiring. First, quick little survey. Please raise your hand if you are a hiring manager. Okay, great. Raise your hand if someone you've hired in the past has left in under 1 year. Raise your hand if you consistently send an offer to the first candidate that goes through an on-site loop with you. Okay. Yeah, was that a hand? No? Because I'd want to talk to that person. There are challenges of hiring. I think, a lot of these are obvious, but tons of resumes. They take time to go through. Very low fidelity, low trust in resumes. You kind of have to talk to a candidate first to really get a sense of what their accomplishments are. It takes a lot of time to interview, just the whole process. There's some metrics later on that we'll talk about. The cost to mishire. Does anyone know what the cost to fix a mishire is? So a mishire is someone who gets in the company and is not a good fit and has to be replaced. Does anyone know the cost, like X? How many X of yearly salary? 2X, okay. Good guess. Anyone else? Any more bidders? 5 to 27 times. This is based on research. Dr. Bradford Smart, he's the author of Top Grading, of a lot of different roles, not just in tech, but 5 to 27 times. So if your annual salary is 100,000, it's 500,000 to how many millions to replace? This is opportunity cost. This is time spent managing that person, severance pay, all the above. Very high. But it really comes down to getting enough information to make that confident hiring decision, right? That's what we're all looking for. We're looking for a signal out of the noise to assess a person's skill, fit, competence, and if they're going to be successful at this company or not. Let's take a look at some numbers. This is software engineering roles in US and Canada. These are some averages. They're a little dated, a couple years old. 56 days, average time to fill a role. I think this was when hiring was going a little faster too. 39 days is time to hire, so from when you start talking to a candidate to actually fill the role. 24 days is how long the interview process itself takes. For senior positions, it's a little bit longer. An average of 40 qualified candidates for every hire, and you can see this is this data is from GEM. This is like a scaled down version, but of the averages of how many get through each phase of the funnel. And finally, 13 interviews to make a hire. 13, I don't know if that's a big number or a small number. I don't know if less is more or more is more. So really what we want to know is, how do we get to high ROI? The time that we put into hiring till we get the signal we need to make a decision, how do we get there? A little bit more about some hiring statistics. Referrals do much better. They are 4 times more likely to get hired. One of my favorite statistics on referrals, 350% less likely to get fired. This is huge. This means that once a referral candidate gets placed, they usually do pretty well, way better than average, right? But it only makes up 7% of all applicants. And why are referrals better? I think it's kind of obvious. It's that firsthand experience, right? Someone knows a person who they've worked with before or has a great reputation, would like to work with again. They refer them. And this is the best type of data, right? Unless you're interviewing a previous intern or a referral, you don't get this type of data until the person starts on the job. You don't really know how they're going to do until they start. So let's look at the whole recruiting funnel. We're going to go through the process and see what could be optimized at every step, some top kind of tips and tricks. Our goal here, again, is ROI. We want to get enough data to make that high confidence decision in the least amount of time possible. So we're going to talk about, making the process more efficient, maximizing data. And I know as hiring managers, collectively, we probably know most of this. Like if we all got together and put all our minds together and top tips and tricks, in my experience, it's not always implemented, right? Like I've worked a lot of places where everyone complains about the interview process, but it stays the same. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. First, little warning. Okay, you can tell I have 2 teenagers at home because I have things like Netflix and Phil, and they not like us. No one. Okay. All right. This would do great with Gen Z, by the way. Okay. Tell your kids. A little warning. These might not work for everyone. This is based partly on data and research and partly on experience. I'll tell you one really good experience that I've had. So I mentioned how I learned a lot about hiring at Amazon. After Amazon, I went to Apple, the Apple Maps team. And Apple does things a little differently. Different orgs have their own process, and they don't always do the same thing. Amazon's like very structured with their hiring. Apple Maps was a newish type group, but they were growing really, really fast. And the process was all over the place. This led to a lot of issues of like misleveling people. So a year after people were hired, we'd calibrate them and they're just way off, and it's not their fault, right? It's because they were hired at different levels that don't match anymore. Anyways, as a hiring manager at Apple, I filled, my first 12 weeks, I filled 6 open positions. So this is 6 offers that went out, not necessarily start dates. This was the fastest in Apple Maps history. And it was simply by adding some of the things that I had learned at Amazon, other places, about how to put together a good loop and find great candidates. All right, so let's go. First step, excuse me, source and screen. I say there's 2 types of hiring managers when they look at resumes. One type of hiring manager looks for skill, which means, do you have experience with the tools we use, experience with the programming languages we use? Are you going to hit the ground running? Like very, very relevant experience. The other type looks for competence. Can you solve problems? I mean, there's a mix of both, right? But can you solve problems? Are you a good engineer? Can you learn any programming language? Do you select the right tool for the job, depending on what the job is? I am the competence type of hiring manager. I usually don't, like the skills section on a resume, I don't look at it. I don't care that much what tools, it's just what they've been exposed to. I want to know the impact that they've made in their previous experience. I think maybe some of you that I know who I've worked with before here, this is repetitive for them. But I tell people all the time, put your impact on your resume. Don't tell me what you participated in. Don't say, organized or collaborated with, like those 4 bullet points that my introduction, they were like fluff kind of resume things. They didn't really say that much. They just say, oh, I'm really awesome. Competence and impact, that's what I look for. To make the process a lot more efficient, in the application, all the HR questions should be there. So you should screen out candidates before a human talks to them. Screening for location, compensation expectations, any other sort of things that would restrict them from being a candidate for in the role or make them a great fit. Put that in a form, screen it out, right? You don't need to talk to people who won't be able to do the job at all. Then a 30-minute tech screen by HR. This is meant to assess the core skills, right? Tell me about this. Can you do that? Test this, right? HR person doesn't have to know what, the details, but they should know kind of what a good answer looks like. Take notes. I'm a big advocate of recording interviews. I use a tool that uses AI to summarize meetings. So I have a summary of a meeting, of the interview that I do, and then a senior engineer or a hiring manager can look at those notes and quickly say yes or no, right? Don't need to spend a lot of time there. I like to do a lot of these tech screens. Actually, I don't mind doing them myself. Sometimes I take them in the evening so people after their work, we'll have a 30-minute chat later so it doesn't take out of their work day. But it's quick, a little informal, but I just want to know, like, are you just going to be a good fit or not? I tend to do a lot of these because I like to open resumes up for, I cast a wider net in resumes. So I do more of these screens, but then I'm very selective here, right? Very selective. Very few get to the next stage. So in every stage of the funnel, let's go back. Every stage of the funnel, the question you're trying to answer is so the question is, what does this person need to get to the next stage? And now, does this person have it? Do they go to the next stage or not? So, source and screen. Okay, I don't know why. This is probably one of the most controversial aspects of how I like to set up hiring loops. Some of you will probably disagree. I think I know why. I split my on-site loops up into 2 phases. I think this was more an issue when people came in person. So virtual, it's a lot easier to do this. But I front load the core skills first, right? Like a deep dive into the core skills of the position. It could be 1 interview, 2, 3, right? Let's schedule that on like 1 or 2 days. Let's get, focused. But if you don't pass these, you're not getting to the next round, right? There's no use in going to a more behavioral type interview or company fit if the person isn't going to be great at their job, right? So save yourself some time, save the candidate some time. Schedule these first. With virtual interviews, these are actually a lot easier because then you don't have to find a whole day, and you don't have to find a schedule that works for everybody on the loop for just 1 day, right? You break it up, it's a little simpler. There's a mini decision in the middle there, right? So you look at the signal coming in from those interviews and determine, do they go on to the next one, which is the company fit. Then the first one's like, can they do the job? The second one is, can they do the job here, right? My daughter saw these slides and I told her, sorry for, that no asshole policy. That's one of my policies. Everyone knows this at work. Story time. Okay, let me tell you a little story. I was at Amazon. I was a QA engineer. This is before I became manager. And I was just learning how to interview. And I don't know why they put me on this loop, but it was like for a director level position. And at Amazon, director level's pretty high up there. And they wanted me to assess this person's like quality focus, right? The person who came in was a VP at other companies before, and I was really impressed. His resume was amazing. He was very well dressed. He was very, very comfortable. He spoke really eloquently. It's ironic. And I was just kind of overtaken by like, oh, this guy is so much more experienced than me. Like, how can I? And, his answers, when I look back on them, they weren't great, but he just knew how to talk really, really well. So I was thinking like, wow, we have to hire this guy, of course. So I was a yes. And at Amazon, everyone puts in their feedback, and then you see what others' feedback is after you put in yours, right? So it's like a blind vote. So I put in mine, and I'm like, let me see it light up green. I was the only yes. Everyone else was a no. This guy was an asshole. So he used a lot of expletives. So like going back, of course, hindsight, I realize it. Used a lot of expletives, very, very informal in the way he talked about things. In other interviews, when he talked about people management, he's all about squeezing every last drop out of people, optimizing productivity. He graded people on the gum scale, how fast he can chew through them and spit them out. Just horrible, horrible, okay? And that was an eye-opening experience for me. It's better to have a team player who's trustworthy than a rock star, right? Who's going to take down teams, burn bridges. Like, we've all worked with these type of people. No one wants to work with these type of people. They really, drain the life out of, even if they show some productivity, it never lasts. There's a great book called Good to Great, by the way. Highly recommend you guys read this. It's about leaders whose impact lasts after they leave and what common personality or characteristics they have of those type of leaders. Really, really interesting. Anyways. Oh, shoot. Okay. I'll try to go quick. Coca. Let's look at quality engineering competencies. Coca. I look for 4 things. Core competencies of the job. Depends on the position, but for QA, can you test? I will toot my own horn here. This is my claim to fame with my kids, is I have a YouTube video that has over, I think, 215,000 views. It's about testing. It's about how to test a pencil. So I tell my kids all the time that I'm YouTube famous, and they leave the room probably. But can you test? Right? If you're a QA, you have to test. So, and sometimes I pick something random. Sometimes I have the person pick something. I say, what's a feature you use all the time on your phone? What's an app that you use? Cool, let's test that. Anyways, core competencies, and then ownership. Do you rise up to the occasion? Are you the CEO of your own position and role and area? Collaboration, how do you work with others? How do you deal with conflict? How do you influence? All right, a previous speaker talked about communication being a key skill. I agree. You could be great at what you do, but if you can't communicate and influence others and teach others and improve them, then your effectiveness is quite limited. Finally, going back to that bar raiser answer that I gave, good attitude. It's more than good attitude. I think it's just a good summary word for it. But are you pleasant to work with? Do you have an optimistic view, right? Are you not always a naysayer in a good way, right? Like, you challenge things, but you're pleasant. So 4 core things. Now let's talk about the decision. So everyone's taken notes. You've covered all these competencies that you want. Now it's time to come together, the debrief. All the feedback is in. Everyone reads the feedback. The goal here is to get to a decision by consensus, not conquest. So this is a very Amazon thing. I think it works really great. And I've been on very interesting debriefs where everyone's a yes except the hiring manager. Like, that was a really interesting one. So the question was, like, do we still hire this person, but they work for a manager who doesn't want to work with them? We didn't do that. But you want to get to a consensus after discussing all the data together. So it's kind of a group decision. But to do this, you have to have very clear criteria of what you're looking for from the very beginning. So everyone on the loop knows what they're going to ask, what to look for, what data they need to get to that decision. Then you send out an offer, and your job is not done here. References. I know there's different views on how to handle references. I actually like, I can't claim this as mine, but someone says before they talk to a candidate, they interview their references first. Okay, interview their references, right? Like, tell me a person you work with, and I'm going to interview them. Okay, I don't want, the CTO of the company who barely knows your name. Tell me something you've worked with, and then they ask them, how did this person do? How did they communicate, collaborate? What was their attitude like? What can they improve? Because again, experience working with someone is invaluable, right? That's the best type of data that you want. Finally, we're not done because you need to onboard this person, assuming they accept the offer. And this has to go successful. It has to be successful for the whole candidate experience to be successful. I got 5 minutes, but the food's not out yet. All right, fine. I'll hurry. Okay, have an onboarding plan. All right, cool. So we wondered, is there a better way to do this, right? Given that how much better referrals are at not just being hired, but being successful on the job, how often this data is actually left out from the hiring process, how only 13 interviews to make a hiring decision, I don't think that's enough. And the cost of a mishire is so high that this decision is so important, and we don't give it really enough time, and it's a huge risk. So at InnovateQA, we think we've come up with a better solution for this. Shameless plug, by warning, shameless plug. We take candidates through a 6-week program where they work on a real-world product. They ship a feature. We evaluate their performance just like we would at a real job. We're all hiring managers ourselves with 20 or more years of experience in the tech industry. We deliver not just a resume, but a whole portfolio of work, including peer feedback, performance evaluations, so hiring managers know strengths, areas to improve, output of work. They can look at documentation. They have so much more information. Think of it's an intern who's worked at your company. You can talk to their manager and know exactly how they performed on the job before making that decision. And we don't leave them once they get hired. We offer 90 days of career coaching. So we try to be that matchmaker between candidates and open roles and make people successful, not just interviewing, not just getting the position, but staying at the company. Let's go through some best practices. Okay, I'll skip this next story. Yeah, if there's one thing that I'd want to say, it would be, as much as possible, try to remove your bias from the interview. I've been guilty of this myself. Like I said, that VP who I was very impressed with, I had a bias, right? A positive bias, and that clouded my judgment. What I try to do to remove this is first identify if I do have a bias, like if I really like someone or don't like someone, try to be cognizant of that. I don't read previous feedback from other interviewers, and I give the person every chance possible. So this means if they gave me a really bad answer, I don't stop. I ask a different question or follow-up questions. And one key thing that I always try to do is I try to find the superpower of each person. Everyone's good at something. What is this person good at? And I don't stop until I find it. I never end interviews early because they're potential customers. I try to look for that, and I don't stop till I get it. It makes for a much better interview experience and usually get something a lot more out of the candidate. Spend 60 minutes, not 45. It's an important decision. You need to spend more time on it. Okay. Some of my favorite interview questions, these are curated over years. I'm sharing it with you all here. Some are unexpected, but they provide great data. The first two I think are uniquely my own. Others I've stole. But I want to know 4 key things. I want to know what consistently your superpower is, and also what's an area of improvement. Like the answer to this question is something that I don't expect this candidate to improve, right? This is going to be their kryptonite. It's very hard to change people, right? Everyone has weaknesses. So this question tells me, and people are usually very, very honest when I ask this type of question. Finally, your commitment, you're going to stick it out, and grit. There's a great book called Grit, Angela Duckworth, I think. Highly recommend it. It's the key indicator for success. If there's one thing I would want to point out in this slide is don't lower your bar. Keep interviewing until you find the right candidate. The cost of a mishire is very high. Set a bar for yourself. The first candidate that exceeds that bar, that's who you send an offer to. You don't settle. You don't pit interviewers against each other. You know what you're looking for. You know what data you need. Go out and get it. I can tell you more stories about the worst interview experience I had. I got sick, literally sick from an interview, and just other kind of fun, interesting ones. Come say hi to me. I'd love to hear your experiences as well. Good interview questions, bad interview experiences, embarrassing interview answers. I like those ones. If there was time for questions, I would take them now, but one question. Yeah.
Why are you against homework? You're less light.
Oh, yeah. Good question. I think that's another controversial one. I've never seen this done well. First, homework takes time from the candidate. My experience is rock star candidates are really busy doing rock star stuff at their job, and they have a life, right? And I mean, unless they really want this job and they make the time for it, you end up losing really great candidates that way. Like if someone needs to spend 2 or 4 hours on their weekend to do a homework assignment, and plus, let's be honest, it's really easy to fake and lie and cheat on homework. Even tools like HackerRank, where they try to build in like some cheat detection, it's not perfect. I tried it. It didn't work. And yeah, very low signal to noise. Not effective, low fidelity. Yeah.
So the thing you didn't mention there is about giving feedback after the interviews to the candidate, and that's love to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I never give feedback to candidates. As much as I'd love to, I like helping people. It's just a liability. I never, ever, nothing. It's a liability. I don't want to say the wrong thing or something and someone sue our company or misinterpret something. I try to be fair and unbiased, but it's just never give feedback, ever. One more, hurry, quick.
Yeah, meta question, but how do you hire hiring managers using this? Wouldn't they know the inside funnel for your company?
Hiring manager inside the funnel. Okay, let's talk after. Because I think I know what you're saying, but I'm not sure. Okay, thank you all so much. Come and say hi to me. Love to talk to you. Thank you. Thank you.